The chamber of the Galactic Council was silent, heavy like the air before a great storm. Thousands of alien delegates sat inside the shining hall, their voices gone. Their eyes fixed on the center platform where a single human stood in chains. The man's name was Elias Kane, a diplomat of Earth, chosen to speak for humanity among the stars. He was no soldier, no warrior, just a man who believed in words more than weapons. And now he was to die. The council guards, tall insectoid creatures with razor arms, surrounded him. Their leader raised a long spear that glowed with blue fire. The sentence had been declared death for violating council order. No one explained what crime he had done. No trial, no chance. It was only politics, hidden games between alien empires. But Elias was not part of their games. He was only a symbol of Earth's voice. And yet today, that voice was being silenced. Humans had warned the council before. Again and again their ambassadors spoke of peace, of trust, of respect. They said humanity would join the stars but not kneel to anyone. They said, we want to build together. The council listened. But behind closed doors they whispered that humans were dangerous, unpredictable, too bold for their own good. And so they made their choice, to strike first, to break the spirit of Earth before Earth could rise. Elias lifted his head. His face was bruised, his lip bleeding, but his eyes were sharp. He did not beg, he did not cry, he simply spoke, and his words carried across the hall. You think this ends with me? You think Earth will bow because you kill one voice? No. You are making a fire you cannot control. When it burns, it will burn the stars. The council delegates shifted uncomfortably. Some hissed in anger, others looked away in silence. They all knew what was about to happen, but none dared to stop it. The insectoid guard struck. The spear pierced Elias Kane's chest, blue fire. Exploding through his body, he fell to the floor, lifeless, his blood spreading across the shining platform. The chamber filled with silence once more, deeper, heavier, darker. For a moment the universe seemed still, and then the silence broke. Somewhere in the chamber, a human recording drone blinked its red eye. Every second of Elias Kane's execution had been captured. Every word, every scream, every drop of blood. The drone lifted into the air, small and fast, escaping before anyone could stop it. The council guards chased, but the drone was going to vanishing into the endless stars. The news reached Earth within days. Billions watched in disbelief as the final moments of Elias Kane played on every screen. The image of him standing proud, speaking his last words, refusing to bow, it struck deep into the heart of every man, woman, and child. His death was no longer just the end of one diplomat. It became a wound carved into the soul of humanity. And wounds demand an answer. At first the world was silent. Streets were quiet. Cities were frozen. No one spoke. No one moved. The people of Earth simply watched, again and again, the death of their voice in the stars. But silence never lasts. Slowly, anger began to grow. Anger that shook nations. Anger that united enemies. Anger that forged one will across an entire planet. The United Earth Council gathered in their war chamber. Generals, admirals, leaders all came together, not divided, not arguing. For the first time in history, they spoke with one voice. Voice of wrath. Admiral Reyes, a man with iron in his eyes, stood before them and said only 3 words. They will pay. No one disagreed. No one doubted. The decision was made. Across the solar system, hidden fleets awoke. Warships that had slept in silent docks for decades roared to life. Their black hulls shone under the light of the sun, their cannons armed, their engines burning with fury. These were not just ships. These were legends, built in secret, waiting for the day humanity would need them. And that day had come. But warships were not enough. Humanity called its veterans, its warriors, its heroes. Men and women who once fought in forgotten wars answered the call. Old captains returned to their bridges. Pilots strapped back into cockpits. Soldiers sharpened their blades. Humanity was not preparing for defense. Humanity was preparing for vengeance. The stars would soon burn. And the council, sitting proud in their halls, did not yet understand. What they had unleashed, they thought they killed a voice. Instead, they gave birth to a storm that carried the wrath of an entire species, a storm that would blaze across the galaxy, leaving fire and ash in its path. The execution of Elias Kane was not an ending. It was the beginning of war, the beginning of humanity's fury, the beginning of fire that no council, no empire, no power could ever hope to contain. And as Earth's fleet rose from the shadows of its home, one truth echoed through every ship, every soldier, every heart: humanity would never forgive. Humanity would never forget. Humanity would answer blood with fire. The Galactic Council believed the storm had passed. To them, the death of one human was nothing more than a warning, a lesson to remind Earth of its place. After all, Earth was young, a small world standing against empires thousands of years old. The council delegates spoke to each other in quiet voices, confident that fear would keep humanity silent. But far away, on the edge of the solar system, the storm was already waking. In the black docks of Titan, Saturn's largest moon, steel doors opened for the first time in decades. From the shadows, giant ships drifted out like beasts freed from a cage. Their hulls were scarred from old wars, their names carved deep in iron: Valiant, Nemesis, Iron Fist, Horizon. These were not ordinary warships. They were the fleet of retribution, kept hidden, sealed away, waiting for a day when Earth would need more than diplomacy. Now that day had come. Admiral Reyes stood on the bridge of the Valiant, staring out at the endless sea of stars. His voice was low, steady, but burning with fire. They executed Kane. They thought no one would answer. They were wrong. We are the answer. All around him, officers moved with cold focus. Engines lit, weapons systems charged, fleets aligned. In formation, one by one, ships reported ready. There was no hesitation. Every captain, every soldier, every pilot knew why they were here. Humanity had been struck, humiliated before the galaxy. Now, the galaxy would learn what humans became when they were pushed too far. Back on Earth, the people gathered. They filled streets, towers, and fields, watching the sky where the fleet began its long rise. Some cheered, shouting Kane's name. Others stood silent, their fists clenched, their faces hard with grief. No one doubted what was coming. The war was no longer a question. It was a promise. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, whispers spread. The execution had been seen by millions, carried on the human drone before the council tried to silence it. Worlds watched the video in shock. Some races pitied humans, others laughed, saying Earth would be crushed like an insect. But a few felt fear. They saw the look in Elias Kane's eyes before he died. They saw a species that did not bow even in death. And deep inside, they wondered what would happen if that defiance became fire. The council ignored the whispers. They believed their control was absolute. Their fleets were vast, their armies endless. Humanity was small, untested, weak. They will rage, one counselor hissed. They will scream. But in the end, they will kneel. But humanity did not kneel. In secret, Earth's leaders had prepared for this possibility for years. They had studied the council's tactics, their fleets, their weaknesses. They had built weapons not for defense but for punishment. They had something no other species carried: unity born of fury, where the council's empires fought each other. With old grudges, humanity stood as one. On Mars, armored divisions drilled in the red dust. On Luna, fighters screamed into the black sky, their engines burning white. From hidden stations in the asteroid belt, missile silos armed with warheads that could turn moons into ash. Everywhere the call went out, and everywhere humanity answered, and, among the stars, legends awakened. Old captains who had left the battlefield returned, their names whispered with respect. Iron Hand Kovacs, the soldier who once led Earth's armies in the War of the Belt, stood again in his armor. Captain Silva, the pilot who broke the blockade of Europa, stepped back into her fighter. These were not just warriors, they were myths in human form, and they were ready for one last war. Admiral Reyes gathered them on a holocall, their faces lit by blue light. His words were sharp, each one a blade. The council believes they killed one man, but they killed more than Cain. They killed trust, they killed peace. They killed the idea that humans could walk among them as equals. Now they will see the cost, they will see fire. The officers nodded. No one smiled. But this was not joy. This was not glory. This was vengeance. The first orders were given. Recon fleets moved ahead, small shadows cutting through council space. Silent probes scanned star lanes, mapping routes, charting targets. Earth was not rushing into blind rage. Humanity's wrath was patient, sharp, deliberate. They would strike when the council least expected. And when they struck, they would strike hard. Yet even as the fleets moved, there was one question burning in every human heart. Would the galaxy stand against them more with them? Some races hated the council's arrogance. Some suffered under its chains. Perhaps Cain's death would not only awaken human fury, but also ignite rebellion across the stars. Admiral Reyes understood this. He knew war was not only fought with weapons, it was fought with symbols. And Elias Cain had become the greatest symbol of all. His death was no longer just human grief. It was a spark that could set empires ablaze as the valiant cut through the void. Reyes spoke softly, almost to himself. They wanted silence. Instead, they gave us a voice louder than any other. And that voice will be war. The fleet moved forward, dark and relentless, like the shadow of a storm creeping across the stars. The council had no idea what was coming, but soon they would. The councils. Fleets patrolled the border worlds as if nothing had changed. Giant cruisers drifted across trade lanes, their banners shining. Their commanders smug with the belief that humanity would remain quiet. After all, what could one young species do against an alliance of 1,000 empires? But not everyone in the galaxy believed this lie. Some merchants spoke of strange shadows seen at the edge of star systems. Outposts whispered of sensors catching unknown signals before vanishing. The council ignored the warnings. They said, "It is nothing. Humans are reckless, but they are not fools. They will not strike us. They were wrong." On the bridge of the Valiant, Admiral Reyes stood in silence as the stars shifted on the tactical map. The target was a council supply hub station, Redor 7, a fortress orbiting a dying star. It's defended by cruisers bristling with guns. It was thought untouchable. No one dared strike it. No one until now. Captain Silva, her sharp eyes glowing in the dim light, looked at Reyes. "Sir, if we attack, the council will know this is war." Reyes did not blink. "It is already war. They only haven't realized it yet." The order was given. Humanity's first strike was about to begin, in the darkness beyond Redor 7. The fleet waited, hidden, silent, engines cold. Human ships had learned to cloak their energy, masking their presence in the star's radiation. To the council patrols, the system looked quiet, empty, safe. Then the silence broke. The Nemesis, Earth's flagship carrier, unleashed its swarm. Hundreds of fighters screamed into the void, black shapes lit only by starlight. They moved fast, cutting through the dark like arrows of fire. Behind them, destroyers powered up, their cannons glowing red. Their missiles armed. The first council cruiser never saw them coming. Its shields flared, then shattered under a storm of plasma fire. Explosions ripped through its hull, tearing it apart before alarms could even ring. The second cruiser managed to fire back, but Earth's fighters swarmed it like wolves, tearing its engines apart until the ship drifted dead and burning. Within minutes, the great fortress of Redor 7 realized it was under attack. Sirens blared. Heavy turrets rotated, spitting beams of light into the dark. But humanity had prepared. Their warships moved in coordinated strikes, each blow precise, each maneuver calculated. This was not chaos. This was vengeance, shaped into perfect war. Admiral Reyes watched as the station fought back, its shields glowing, its weapons firing in every direction. But Earth's fleet was relentless. A squadron of bombers dived toward the station, weaving through deadly fire. One by one, some were hit, exploding in silence, but the rest made it through. Their payloads struck, the shield collapsed. The fortress trembled. And then came the missiles. From the Valiant, from the Iron Fist, from hidden silos within asteroids nearby, humanity's wrath was unleashed. Dozens of warheads streaked across space, striking the massive station in blinding waves. The explosions lit the dying star brighter than it had shone in centuries. When the fire cleared, Retaro 7 was gone. Not damaged, not crippled. Gone, reduced to burning wreckage drifting in silence. The first strike was complete. Humanity had drawn blood. On the fleet's bridge, the silence after victory was heavy. Officers stared at the wreckage, their faces hard, their hands trembling. Some whispered Kane's name. Others said nothing at all. They all knew this was only the beginning. Admiral Reyes finally spoke. His voice was steady, but his eyes burned. Let them see. Let them understand. Humanity does not kneel. Humanity answers. Across the galaxy, the shock spread like wildfire. News of Retaro 7's destruction could not be hidden. Merchants carried the story. Soldiers whispered it. Worlds under the Council's rule began to tremble. No one had ever dared strike so deep, so hard, against the mighty Galactic Council. No one until Earth. On distant planets, enslaved races watched the recordings and felt hope. For the first time, they saw that the Council could bleed. If it could bleed, it could fall. But in the Council's Great Hall, panic turned to rage. Delegates screamed at one another, demanding answers, demanding vengeance. Some said Earth must be crushed immediately. Others feared what would happen if humanity struck again. For the first time in centuries, the Council was afraid. The insectoid commander who had executed Elias Kane spoke with fury. Humans are vermin. They must be erased before this fire spreads. But another delegate, a reptilian lord, hissed in warning. Do not underestimate them. We thought them weak. Now they have destroyed Retaro 7. What else are they hiding? Council roared with arguments, but the truth was clear. The galaxy was no longer the same. Humanity had crossed a line, and there was no going back. Meanwhile, in the shadows of space, Admiral Reyes prepared his next move. The fleet was victorious. But he knew the war was only beginning. The Council would send everything they had, entire armadas, endless armies. Humanity would face the fury of the galaxy itself, and yet Reyes did not fear. He remembered Kane's last words, "You're making a fire you cannot control." Looking at the burning wreckage of Retaro 7, Reyes whispered to himself, "The fire has begun." The destruction of Retaro 7 spread across the galaxy like a shockwave. No one could believe it. A fortress that had stood for centuries, guarded by the Council's fleets, reduced to ash in a single night. It was not just a military loss. It was a scar carved deep into the Council's pride. The delegates in the Council chamber raged. Voices roared. Fists slammed against metal tables. The insectoid commander hissed in fury. "This cannot stand. The humans dare strike us. Then we answer with fire. With total war." The vote was swift. The Council ordered its armadas to move. Against humanity, hundreds of warships, drawn from dozens of species, were sent toward human space. Massive fleets that had crushed rebellions, silenced uprisings, destroyed civilizations. Now, they were unleashed on Earth. But even as the Council prepared its counterattack, something else began to move, quiet, hidden, dangerous. On distant worlds, far from the Council's shining halls, oppressed species whispered. For centuries, they had lived under Council, rule-taxed, controlled, beaten down. They had no hope, no power. But then came the recording of Elias Kane's last words. Then came the fall of Retaro 7, and suddenly the impossible seemed possible in dark taverns. In secret caves, rebels spoke the name human like a spark in the night. Some sent signals across space, coded messages carried by smugglers in shadows. If you fight the Council, we will fight too. Humanity did not know it yet, but the galaxy was beginning to stir. Admiral Reyes, aboard the Valiant, studied reports in the war chamber. His officers were tense. Scouts had returned with grim news. The Council's armada was on the move. Dozens of fleets, hundreds of warships, all converging on the borders of human space. Captain Silva leaned over the table, her jaw tight. If they hit Earth directly, billions will die. Reyes shook his head. They won't strike Earth first. They want to break us in the outer colonies. They want to crush our fleets before reaching our homeworld. But they do not understand we are ready. In the colony world of EOS, civilians were already being evacuated. Massive transports carried families into orbit, escorted by human destroyers. Children pressed against windows, watching the stars as their world disappeared below. Soldiers stood in silence, their rifles ready, their faces hard. They all knew the Council was coming. And then they came. The first clash happened above EOS. The sky turned into fire as the Council armada arrived, dozens of massive cruisers, their weapons glowing like suns. They opened fire the moment they appeared, beams of energy slashing across the void. Human ships met them head-on, their cannons blazing, their fighters swarming. The battle was chaos. Explosions ripped through the black sky. Missiles streaked across space, colliding with shields that burned white-hot. Human frigates darted between giant cruisers, striking like knives before pulling away. But for every Council ship destroyed, another seemed to appear. The armada was endless, a wall of steel and flame. On the Iron Fist, Commander Kovacs barked orders, his deep voice carrying over alarms. Hold the line, do not let them through. His ship shook under heavy fire, but still he fought, his cannons tearing holes into the enemy fleet. But the Council was relentless. A massive dreadnought entered the battle, its size dwarfing every human ship. Its weapons lit up, unleashing a beam that tore straight through a human destroyer, splitting it apart in a single strike. On the Valiant, Reyes watched the battle unfold. His officers looked to him, waiting, desperate. Humanity's fleet was strong, but against the full might of the Council, it was outnumbered, outgunned. Reyes raised his hand, signaled the nemesis. Release the hidden wings. At once, the human carrier unleashed its secret weapon. From its dark belly poured not hundreds, but thousands of drones, small, fast, deadly. They swarmed like a cloud of steel, overwhelming the Council's cruisers, tearing apart engines, blinding sensors. The dreadnought tried to fire again, but the drones ripped into its weapons, detonating explosions from within. The giant ship trembled, then it broke apart in a storm of fire. The tide shifted. The humans pressed forward, striking hard, pushing the armada back. The sky above Eos blazed with wreckage, Council ships burning as they fell into the planet's atmosphere. Humanity had survived the first great counterattack, but it was only the beginning as the Council retreated. Reyes stood in silence, staring at the battlefield. The victory had cost them dearly. Dozens of human ships were gone. Thousands of soldiers had fallen. And yet they had endured. A message arrived on the comms, coded transmission, not from Earth, not from the fleet, but from beyond. Reyes listened. In silence, as the voice spoke. It was rough, alien, but clear. We saw what you did at Redor 7. We saw how you stood against their armada. Humanity fights. We wish to fight too. Reyes leaned back in his chair, his eyes narrowing. For the first time, he realized Kane's death had done more than awaken humanity's wrath. It had awakened something greater, rebellion across the stars. The galaxy was no longer silent. It was rising. The battlefield above Eos still burned, wreckage drifting like ash across the stars. Human fleets limped back for repairs, their ships scarred but unbroken. The Council had thrown its armada at them, and still humanity stood. The impossible had happened. Earth had survived the fury of empires, and now the galaxy was watching. Admiral Reyes sat alone in the war chamber of the Valiant, his face lit by the faint glow of holograms. His officers had left for the night, but Reyes could not rest. The coded message still echoed in his mind. "We saw what you did. We wish to fight too." He replayed it again. The voice was alien, but heavy with defiance. Who were they? Rebels? Slaves? Entire races crushed under council boots. The thought made Reyes pause. Humanity had risen in anger. But what if others rose as well? What if Cain's death had not? Just awakened humans, but all the galaxies oppressed? The next day the answer came. A smuggler ship appeared at the edge of human space, its engines flickering, its hull battered. Human patrols surrounded it, weapons ready. But instead of fighting, the ship sent a signal. "Parley, we come in peace." Reyes ordered the vessel brought to the fleet. On the hangar deck, soldiers aimed rifles as the ship's ramp lowered. Figures stepped out thin, gray-skinned creatures with sharp eyes, their bodies wrapped in ragged cloaks. They carried no weapons, only banners burned with council markings. One of them stepped forward and bowed low. His voice was strained, but steady. "We are the Idroth. For centuries the council has chained us. We mine their worlds, we bleed for their armies. But no longer. We saw what you did. You are proof they can be hurt. Join with us, and we will rise." The hangar fell silent. Officers glanced at one another, uncertain. Aliens had never come to humanity asking for alliance. Reyes studied the Idrith leader carefully. His face was worn, scarred by years of servitude. But his eyes burned with the same fire Reyes saw in every human soldier. Reyes spoke slowly. "If you fight with us, the council will destroy you." The Idrith straightened. "If we do not fight, we are already destroyed." The word struck deep. Reyes extended his hand. "Then you are no longer alone. Welcome to the war. Let's will." The beginning, one by one, other voices reached humanity. Secret signals came from hidden worlds, from slave mines, from rebel cells long thought dead. The Vayari, bird-like traders who had lost their fleets to council taxes. The Arachan, amphibious, workers who had been chained for generations. The Koran, a proud warrior race broken by the council centuries ago. They all whispered the same thing. "We are ready. Show us the path." For the first time in history, humanity was not standing alone. An alliance was forming. Fragile, but real. A coalition of the broken, the beaten, the forgotten, united by a single spark: vengeance. But the council was not blind. In their chamber, the delegates roared with fury. Reports of rebellion spread faster than they could silence them. Outposts destroyed, slaves vanishing, fleets ambushed. The insectoid commander slammed his claws against the table. "Duh, the humans are spreading corruption. They poison our order. If we do not crush them now, the galaxy will burn." The reptilian delegate hissed in warning. "It is already burning." The council ordered a new campaign, Operation Silence. Not just war against humanity, but a purge of every world suspected of rebellion. Fleets were dispatched to crack down with brutal force. Entire colonies were bombed into ash. Cities that whispered of humans were erased from maps. Millions died, screaming as the council tried to hold its grip. But the more they burned, the more the fire spread. In the shadows, resistance only grew stronger. The Idrith smuggled weapons to human allies. Urchin sabotaged council warships from within. The Koran raised old banners of war. Every act of cruelty only pushed more species toward humanity's side. The council had meant to silence the galaxy. Instead, they gave it a voice. On the bridge of the Nemesis, Captain Silva listened to reports of uprisings spreading across 10 different systems. She looked at Admiral Reyes and said, "They tried to make the galaxy fear us. Instead, the galaxy begins to hope." Reyes nodded. "Hope can be more dangerous than any weapon." The war had changed. Humanity was no longer fighting only for Elias Cain or for vengeance alone. They were fighting for something greater. They were fighting for every species that had ever been chained, silenced, or crushed beneath the council's rule. The stars were ablaze with rebellion, and humanity stood at the heart of it. The galaxy had never seen such a sight. Human warships sailed beside rebel vessels, their hulls painted with scars of old servitude. The Idrith flew banners of freedom instead of chains. Rachan brought ships stolen from the council docks, crewed by soldiers who once wore collars. Even the Koran, their war drums silent for centuries, now beat them once more. It was not a fleet of equals. It was a fleet of survivors, of the broken, of the furious. And for the first time in history, they stood together. Admiral Reyes watched the combined armada gather near the red glow of a dying star. Around him, holograms showed hundreds of ships aligning into formation. It was not perfect. Rebel ships were old, mismatched, fragile compared to humanity's steel. But their crews fought with fire in their hearts. Captain Silva spoke quietly. "They've chosen us to lead. If we fail, they'll fall with us." Reyes nodded. "We do not fail." Their target was bold. A council world named Dryness, a fortress planet rich with industry. From there, the council fueled its fleets and supplied its armies. To strike it was to strike at the heart of their power. But to win would prove that the council was not untouchable. It would prove the rebellion was real. The fleet jumped into Dryness space. The planet appeared below them, covered in black steel cities and glowing with endless factories. Its orbit was a ring of warships, turrets, and stations. The council had made Dryness a symbol of its might. Alarms rang across the system the moment the human rebel fleet arrived. Council commanders shouted orders, their fleets rushing to intercept. But Reyes was ready. Release the swarm. From the Nemesis, thousands of fighters and drones burst into the void, black shadows cutting through the stars. Rebel ships followed Idrith. Gunships, Corn war cruisers, RHN boarding craft. Together they struck like a storm. The first clash was brutal. Council ships fired in heavy volleys, their weapons lighting space in white flame.
Ow.
Dozens of rebel vessels were shattered in the opening minutes. But the humans and their allies did not retreat. They pressed harder, striking at weak points. Overwhelming defenses with sheer fury. On board, a Idroth gunship. Commander Veyer shouted through smoke as his ship rattled under fire. "We fight for the chains they broke on our backs. Hold the line." His crew roared in answer, their guns blazing. On the bridge of the Iron Fist, Kovacs barked, "Push through. Break their center." His ship tore into enemy formations, cannons spitting fire, engines burning bright. Then the rebels unleashed their most desperate tactic. RH and boarding craft slammed against council cruisers, cutting through hulls, spilling soldiers inside. Once slaves, the RH and fought with blades and fury. Tearing down their former masters room by room, Admiral Reyes directed the chaos with cold precision. Every strike, every maneuver, was part of his plan. Slowly, the council's wall of steel began to crack, and then humans struck the planet. Missiles rained down, not on cities, not on civilians, but on the massive foundries that fed the council's war machine. Explosions ripped across Dryness' surface, fire rising into the sky as factories collapsed into ruin. Smoke choked the horizon. Council's fortress world was bleeding. From orbit, council commanders screamed in disbelief. They dare strike Dryness itself. But it was too late. The planet's defenses faltered. Its fleets burned. Its pride shattered. Humanity and its allies had done the unthinkable. When the battle ended, Dryness still stood, but it was broken. Its foundries destroyed, its fleets crippled, its people whispering in fear. The Council had lost one of its strongest worlds. The human rebel fleet gathered in orbit, battered but victorious. Thousands of lives had been lost. Entire rebel ships were gone, their names now only memory, but the cost had meaning. The galaxy would never forget this day. On the valiant Reyes addressed the Allied fleet. His voice carried across every ship, human and alien alike. Today we prove the Council is not invincible. Today the galaxy has seen that unity is stronger than chains. Cain's death lit the fire, but together we are the blaze. And we will not stop until the stars are free. The fleet roared in answer, cheers and war cries echoing across. Comes. For the first time, it was not only humanity's wrath burning in the dark. It was the wrath of many worlds rising together. But in the council chamber, Silence turned to fear. The delegates stared at the reports, their claws and hands trembling. Dryness had fallen. Their fleets had failed. Their fortress world was scarred. The insectoid commander hissed, "If we do not end this now, it will spread across the galaxy." Another delegate, cold and bitter, whispered, "It already has." And so the council prepared its answer. A number. More fleets, no more politics. They would unleash a weapon hidden for centuries. A weapon meant to erase not just armies, but entire worlds. Humanity had struck first. The rebels had risen. But now, the council would show its darkest face. The galaxy trembled after dryness. For the first time in centuries, the council had been defeated on one of its strongest worlds. Its fleets were broken, its pride shattered. But instead of retreating into reason, the council chose terror. In the sealed vaults beneath their grand chamber, a weapon waited, a relic from an ancient war built long before the council's rise. It was called Oblivion, a construct of death created by a forgotten empire. For centuries, the council had kept it locked away, fearing even to speak its name. But now, fear turned into desperation. The insectoid commander stood before the delegates, his claws twitching. "Our fleets are losing. The humans have poisoned the galaxy with rebellion. Only one answer remains." The chamber fell into silence. No one wanted to say it aloud. But then the reptilian delegate hissed, "Unleash Oblivion." And so they said. Oblivion was no ordinary weapon. It was a living engine, a construct built to devour energy, to consume stars themselves. Awakened, it rose from its prison like a shadow across the void. Its body was a black sphere covered in burning red veins, its size larger than any fleet. It did not speak. It only moved, slow and steady, toward human space. Human scouts were the first to see it. Their reports came broken, filled with static. And fear? It's not a ship. It's something else, something alive. The transmission ended in silence. The scouts never returned. On the valiant Admiral Reyes stood with his officers as the reports came in. Holograms showed distorted images of a massive shape drifting between the stars. No one could identify it. Some said it was a machine, others said it was a creature. But whatever it was moving toward them. Captain Silva frowned. "Why send one weapon instead of a fleet?" Commander Kovacs growled, "'Cause they think one is enough." Reyes' face hardened. Deep down, he knew the truth. This was no ordinary weapon. This was something the council feared as much as they hoped to use. If they had released it, it meant they were ready to burn the galaxy itself, to stop humanity. The fleet scrambled. Recon ships were sent ahead. War councils were called. But the truth came too late. Oblivion arrived at the edge of rebel space. The first planet to face it was Idroth Prime, the homeworld of their new allies. The Idroth gathered in orbit, their ships forming a desperate shield. They fired everything they had, lasers, missiles, torpedoes, but the weapon did not fall. Black surface absorbed the blasts like drops of rain. Then, with a single pulse of red light, Oblivion answered. The pulse spread like a wave, silent but unstoppable. Idrith ships shattered one by one, their engines dying, their weapons falling silent. The entire fleet was gone in seconds. And then, the pulse struck the planet itself. From orbit, Reyes and his fleet watched in horror. Greth Prime's surface cracked open, oceans boiling, cities crumbling. The world itself collapsed inward, devoured into nothingness. When the light faded, the planet was gone. Not destroyed, erased, as if it had never existed. The fleet was silent. Soldiers, rebels, humans alike stared at the empty space where a world had once been. Millions of lives gone in a heartbeat. On the valiant Captain Silva whispered, "How do we fight that?" No one answered. Reyes clenched his fists. "We don't run. We don't bow. We find a way." But inside, even he felt the weight of fear. The council had unleashed something beyond imagination. And now it was moving again, drifting toward the next target, toward humanity. The rebellion faltered. Signals poured in from across the stars. Some allies begged for help. Others cursed humanity, saying it was their war that brought Oblivion's wrath. Entire worlds considered surrender, fearing they would be next to vanish. The council smiled in their chamber. The insectoid commander hissed, "Let them see what awaits all who defy us. Let them drown in despair." But in the shadows of the human fleet, a whisper rose. Scientists and engineers had studied the first recordings of Oblivion, and they saw its veins of red light, its core of burning energy, and they believed there was a weakness, a chance. Reyes listened as they explained. It feeds on energy. It devours power. But what if it consumes more than it can hold? What if we overload it from within? It was a desperate plan. To defeat the weapon, they would have to face it directly, feed it until it broke apart. That meant sacrifice. Ships, fleets, lives, laws, thrown into the fire. Reyes looked at his officers. He thought of Kane's last words. "You are making a fire you cannot control." Maybe Kane had been right. Maybe Oblivion was that fire. But humanity was not ready to give up. Reyes spoke, his voice steady. "If this thing can erase worlds, then we have only one choice. We end it, no matter the cost." The officers nodded. Fear still in their eyes, but also determination. They had faced fleets. They had faced empires. Now, they would face a god. The stars waited in silence. Oblivion moved closer. And humanity prepared for the final battle.